All right, welcome everybody to the Pitch Slapped or Pitch Perfect session here at Tech Alley with Fusion 42. So I think this is a pretty important fundamental question that each of you guys should be asking yourselves when you have the opportunity to pitch. Which do you want people to be saying about you? Oh my gosh, I can't believe that person just pitched all that nonsense, or why are they still droning on? What is the point? I don't think they're going to make it. Is that what you want to have people say about you? That's what we call pitch slapping, right? Or do you want it to be like, wow, holy crap, that's a founder I need to get involved in. That's a founder I need to introduce to people. That's a founder I need to bring to my capital partners. That's a founder I need to invest in. That was a perfect pitch, right? And I thought it might actually be a little appropriate to further drive this point home with, does this kind of look like a used car salesman would wear something like this, right? Right? What do we think? It's my bowling shirt, right? Right? So I just wanted to drive that point home, and the further drive it home in the way that most people show up when they're pitching, or the minute that they meet you, they're trying to pitch you, and they're trying to get after your capital relationships. And inside of people's pitches, something I think that is probably the best quote I could ever think about on this is, I did not have the time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead. Mark Twain. What this speaks to when people say, Kurt, why are you guys so focused on 2-minute pitches in the danger room inside of Telegram for feedback? Why do you guys do 2-minute pitches in person at the Venture House properties? Why do you guys do 2-minute pitches at Pitch Kung Fu every single week on Thursdays? And why do you guys do really short pitches at Fused and Funded when you're focused on getting founders checks? Because it can be said and it can be explained and shared very powerfully in a few minutes. You do not need more time than that. Yep. And so again, powerful writers know this. That's the reason why Mark Twain said this. He said, I didn't have time to write something where I distilled all the best qualities and interesting facts and told the emotional story. And so I'm just going to write something that's long-winded instead, right?
You had heard of Uri Levine?
Yeah.
I was reading his book. He said, it's like a date. You can tell in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Really.
Right. And Uri is somebody I quote pretty often. He wrote a book called Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution. He was the founder of Waze. He's now working on his $3 billion company. $3 billion company. Pretty crazy. That's a pattern. All right. So this is one of the fundamental questions we're here to answer today. Okay. We're going to set the room, though. We need to be all on the same page. There's a lot of misunderstanding. Okay. For those of you guys that don't know this from me bringing this up before, what does this represent? What's this number represent? This is the percentage of founders that actually get funded. 0.05. 0.05. Now, we do like to teach you guys that the capital is, for all intents and purposes, completely unlimited. It really is. You should think that there's a world of infinite talent, infinite innovation, and infinite capital to back and support those founders that show up in a very specific way. But this is how small that number actually is. And so a question I also have for you is, will it be you in the way that you show up? See, people get pitching wrong. They get pitch decks wrong. It announces who you are and how well you're able to execute in your savviness based on what's in those very few 2 precious minutes, or in a pitch deck that is incredible in 10 slides or a very short time. Okay, also, further set the room, how many of you guys know what the power law is? Power law. I actually reject the power law. We do here at Fusion 42 not believe that the power law is gospel, but this is the way Silicon Valley operates. Silicon Valley would have you believe, and I understand their perspective, based on the way that they choose to do things, so inside of their context it is correct, but they believe that 98% of all startup founders are doomed to fail, and they just accept it. That's the way it has to be. There's 2 reasons why we reject this. And the biggest thing I've learned in 20 years of funding, guys, on almost every side of the equation, private equity, angel investing, startup loans, being a VC, doing venture debt, now building an accelerator at Fusion 42, and all these other things, and we don't charge equity. It makes us very, very different, is that There's a really big elephant in the room that never gets talked about, and this was borne out. I did 50 plus interviews with some of the best fundraisers and founder funders in the entire world at the last Raise Summit. We have the next one coming up in June, and they all said the same thing, and that is this: founders are not market ready. We don't want to fund a founder that hasn't even conceptualized of something that might actually be something that people want to pay for. This sounds crazy, right? Why would you build something the market doesn't want to buy? And this is what founders do every single day. So let me make sure I really drive this point home, because this is first of two reasons why founders, I think, don't get funded. Is A, it doesn't occur to founders. They're ignorant to this idea that they must figure out what their problem fit is. They must figure out what the market actually wants to buy before they build the MVP, before they build software, and before they go to raise. And it's continuing to have a higher and higher standard based on current technology and how everything's racing to zero as far as the cost of technology, that you're expected to do more with less, more with less. So there's two parts of this equation. The first is founders don't know that they must be market ready. They don't know what that means. They don't know how to de-risk. They don't know how to go out and actually sell. They want to sit in the bat cave and continue to build instead of actually taking time early on at the very beginning. And we're talking the first 30, 60, 90 days. And you have a couple of tries to get this right. And that is, what's the problem? And do I have a fit based on me having hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations with potential clients and customers where they're willing to exchange dollars, or they're willing to go on a wait list, or they're willing to say, I'll buy the minute you launch, right? You have to understand their pain. You have to be able to describe it to them in a way, and then you have to have a solution. Here's the problem. Too many founders build the solution and the product and then go look for a market. It needs to be the other way around. Find out if there's a market. Many of the founders that come to our sessions that have had exits, they say, if I can't sell it, I don't build it. So instead of minimum viable product, do not be thinking minimum viable product, be thinking minimum viable experiment. Think a Google Doc, think a Figma, think something very, very simple that you can go out and say, hey, does this describe the issue that you're having? Great. Scale of 1 to 10, is it above a 7 at least in pain for you? And as a result of that, what are you willing to pay for it? And it's in all of that client conversation and feedback, you start to build the instinct for what the product and the solution might be, your first earliest expression of that. And then also it starts to give you feedback of how to build your go-to market. And your go-to market is in a world of infinite possibilities with limited resources. How am I going to market? How am I launching my company today, tomorrow, and into the future? And it's always evolving. And that's something else I want to point out. Your pitch should not stay the same, which is the reason we have the danger room. You can go in there every single week and upload a new 2-minute pitch on video with no decks, no slides, so that we can see that you're evolving. We can see that you're practicing. We'll see that you can literally deliver a pitch because you know this so well inside and out that you're dangerous anytime, anywhere, any place to anyone. And these are the kinds of things that founders really need to have. This is what sets you apart from all the other founders that are fuddling about with their slides and can't accurately pitch unless everything is perfect conditions. And when do founders get perfect conditions to ever pitch? Never. Never, ever. So that's the first problem is that founders need to be market ready. And this is 80% of their ability to fundraise, is having something that everybody wants to buy. The second part of that is that the funders actually don't want to do the work for you. So it turns out that founders they want to skip the work of being market ready. They want to show up with all the thousands of investors that we've collected and say, just give me investors. That's the problem, Kurt. I'm like, no, it's not, or you'd be funded already. So 80% of a founder's ability to raise is being market ready. The second part is the 20% is the fundraising fluency aspect. This is understanding how to play which capital card and understanding where the capital actually is. So you've got two groups, founders that want to skip doing the homework of getting market ready, and funders that don't really believe it's their job to be teaching founders how to be market ready. And many funders don't even know how to explain to them how fundraising actually works at scale. And that's the reason, in my opinion, why you get the power law. If more funders were taking the time, like myself, to make sure that founders understood what the table stakes are, what the standard is, I think we'd have a different experience. I think if more founders were aware of what market readiness is, and that raise readiness, which is the 20%, the fundraising fluency part, are things that they can actually learn. They can actually become fundraising, learn how to fish from a fundraising perspective for themselves instead of being basically at the beck and call of anybody that wants to bring them a referral, right? There's a very different relationship when a founder realizes, oh, I could actually start up educate myself. I could actually get to the point where I am the source of attracting all the relationships, and I also know how to go out and find and fish for myself when I need different aspects of resources and relationships to bring in. Okay, this other number, many founders I think really misunderstand and underestimate the amount of money that a venture capital fund, which by the way, venture capital only controls 3% of the available capital in the market. I have a whole other presentation I do where I actually explain this, where, hey, there's a lot more capital available for startups than actually comes through VCs. VCs are amazing at what they do, especially the good ones, and they're very needed in the market, but they do not control all the capital. The majority of the capital comes outside of the VCs. But inside the VC model, they're taking money in, and they're taking a huge risk, and they have to promise to create a huge return. And because they believe in the power law, because they're operating as if the power law is gospel, they're going to lose on 9.5, 9.7 of all their investments for every 10 investments they make, and one deal has got to return the entire fund return. And so you're looking at 163x. Just want you to let that set in. It's not 20%, hey, we're growing at 40% a year. 40% a year, guys, is amazing, but it's not enough in the venture world. You've got to be growing at hundreds of percent in order for it to be a good fit. Okay, let's also get into the lack of transparency in the fundraising world. Founders don't know how to do it, and funders don't know how to explain it. And sometimes the funders don't know it themselves. And if you want to know that this is true, just watch how much fundraisers that are going out to raise money for their funds. And if you think it's hard to raise for your company, imagine how hard it is for funders to raise for a fund. They get on planes and they fly all over the planet just to chase down capital. Guys, I don't want you chasing capital. I want you to be chased instead. Think about that. Push. Hey, take my investment. You want my deal. Give us capital. You know how that feels? It puts you on your heels no matter who you are, right? But instead, if it's an invitation born of execution, born of we did all this is what the data is showing, this is what all the clients and customers are saying, I had an exit before, somebody on my team, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It changes the entire polarity of the conversation. Now you're pulling them towards you, right? Okay, so let's get into some of the ridiculous things that VC funds love to say about themselves. And we laugh at this because we publish all the new data for all the new funds every single week. We go out and find all that capital for you. These are brand new funds that have fresh capital ready to deploy. And we publish it on Wednesday. It's called our Raise Report. So last 3 weeks, it's been $700 million, $1.7 billion, and $1.06 billion in the last 3 weeks. And these are small numbers, guys. Sometimes the weeks are like 3 billion, 13 billion, whatever, right? But as some of the founders say, I don't understand what they do. I don't know who they invest in because it's not clear. They say things like, we back bold entrepreneurs building the future of technology. Sounds like everybody. We help we help the daring build legendary companies. You might think VC is about the money. For us, it's about the people. First partner to exceptional teams everywhere. We invest in the world's potential. We invest in early world-class founders attacking large global markets. Partnering with the exceptional to build the impossible. Oh, that sounds good, right? We seek out the very best and most ambitious founders. Guys, where do we get this stuff? Off of the VC's websites. Do any of you guys know what any of this stuff means? And then I like to say, but only if it makes a ton of money, right? And I don't want to paint the VCs as only money driven. It's not true. It's not true at all. But understand they have a business model that they have to stick to. Okay, I know that probably the question you came in here, since it's a fundraising fluency session, who's got my money, right? Who's got my money, right? Is how do I get funded? How do I get funded? But I think that the real question you should be asking yourself is how do I build a market-ready business? And I just described this to you. Market readiness accounts for 80% of your likelihood of success. It's the number one reason why founders fail. If we were to take all the problems, and we have some individuals in the room that have had a ton of exits, and they would agree with me on this topic. They're about to have 3 more exit. Am I right? Is that you need to build a market-ready business first, and then you also need to be fundraising fluent. And this is one of the problems when founders come to you and say, I just need you to bring me capital. They're not willing to learn how to fundraising fish for themselves. They're not willing to learn how to do capital discovery and build the relationships ahead of time. And so what happens is if you give them money now, and they're not willing to learn, they're going to be back in 18 months when they need more money again. Fundraising takes about 12 months for a lot of founders. It takes way too long. That's what we're working to streamline, simplify, automate with the Fusion 42 process. So these are two topics, guys, GTM, go-to-market, and GTF, go-to-fundraise, that I strongly recommend that you really need to become excellent students. But Kurt, I need capital now. I understand that. Do you want to take the wrong capital? You're getting married. Last time I checked, getting married is a big deal, right? So choose the right partner to wed. Super important. Okay, back to the pitch deck situation. I'm going to give you kind of a rundown. We actually have a 50-page document that we have created that breaks down all of our non-consensus views on pitch decks and how they should be operated. I want you to understand something. If this is you getting funded and this is you starting, pitch decks are like over here. You can start one here, but the reality is founders saying, oh, I got my pitch deck, I'm ready to go raise. Show me that you did the homework. You know, if you're pitching and you don't describe your GTM, I know that you don't have one. And that's very scary to me because that means you didn't get feedback. The feedback is what tells you what needs to be your GTM, right? At the end of the day. All right, but I'm going to give you the rundown of what a pitch/pitch deck should probably include in the flow, right? This is what we do in a nutshell because there is a great big problem. Bonus points if you can connect yourself emotionally to the problem, why it matters. My father died from this. I grew up doing this as a kid. I understand this problem because I worked in this space for 15 years and I gave, 60-hour weeks to it, right? Describe your connection to it. And we know how to solve it. We built this. These users love it, and they are winning because of that, right? Which means we are winning and growing as well. And this is how we get paid for it. This is the unit economics of your business. Don't make the investors or anybody else try to figure out any algebra or anything super calculus created difficulty to figure out how you make money. It needs to be very easy in the way you explain the numbers so that the investor says, okay, I think that makes sense. It feels right in their gut, right? We are a solid team. This is talking about your team with the right experience and mindset to execute. And it's the right time to expand and take advantage of what our users are telling us, what the users are telling us based on their experience of us interfacing with them. We're not guessing. We're not guessing if the market wants it. Guys, we have founders. One of my buddies, one of my partners, built Google AdWords and sold it to Google. All of you guys use that. He's had 7 exits, $330 million. And raised funds. During his raise interview that we did for the Raise Summit, he said he didn't get problem fit right a single time. Instead of thinking product market fit, do not. I don't want to hear it come out of your mouth if you're not at Series A round because you do not have a product market fit until you're about Series A. It's usually about an 18-month to 2-year process to get to product market fit. You don't have that kind of time to be hoping for product market fit when you need to be thinking about problem fit. Problem fit, you have a couple of tries. You have 30 to 90-day windows. You have about, 3-4 of those before you're going to probably run out of time, run out of money, and maybe need to go do something different. So you need to take it very seriously that you're executing immediately to find out, can I sell this? Can I validate it? Can I test it? Can I verify it? Can I demo it? Can I sell it? Sell it before you build it. Do not go and build an MVP. An MVP is after you've validated everything. And by the way, this is what the market of funders is telling you is correct, by the way. We're seeing longer and longer wait times to raise capital. We're seeing Series A rounds get pushed out. We're seeing a lack of IPOs, right? So pay attention to what the market is telling you. I just read a book, and I'm just going to keep using this example. Jensen from NVIDIA is a founder everybody's paying attention to. 30 years, he looks like a genius now, right? But he's been in the market for 30 years. The first couple of years of the company, he almost lost the company 3 times by running out of money because he thought he could create the market instead of go find and follow the market. Now he's to the point where he saw the writing on the wall with AI and he positioned himself properly to create a market. But I would still argue that he saw the tidal wave coming and said, I better learn to surf, right? So if Jensen, one of the best founders in the world, has gotten this wrong and it almost cost him the company, I hope I'm driving home to you guys that you must get problem fit and minimum viable experiments figured out early on to de-risk. If guys that have had 7 exits and some of the most notable in the world tell me during our interview, I've never gotten it right the first time, a single time, guys, we're not better than that. I'm sorry, I'm not better than that. So that's something to think about. Coming back to this, the market is enormous. Some others are playing in it, but our users tell us that we are better. You can say that you're awesome. What's better is when somebody else says that you're awesome, right? Much, much better. And we will get more users by doing this. That's kind of an ode to your GTM and explaining how you're going to acquire users. None of us as funders want to think that you're taking our money and throwing it in the trash can because you don't know how to acquire users. And guys, marketing is kind of the thing I think that most founders suck at, marketing and sales. And I think it's interesting when you see founders that are able to bootstrap to exits, they always are great at sales and marketing. I think if you're a builder, you need to be thinking about, how do I operate like a sales organization? If I was a SaaS enterprise sales company, how would I operate with long sales cycles? Because you have long sales cycles when you're getting client and sales capital, right? Which is the first capital macro. You got long sales cycles when you're raising dollar capital, which is the capital you're bringing into the business that's not revenue. And then you have sometimes long sales cycle if we're talking about human and talent capital, which is probably the most important capital you can bring into your company because championships don't win themselves, teams do that, right? And then coming to this, we need to raise this. This is where the ask is. Some founders don't even have an ask in their pitch. And sometimes if you don't have a financial ask, just have we need this connection. We need this feedback. It's always appropriate to have an ask and be crystal clear on it. We execute this, which will get us these outcomes. This is the return we expect, da-da-da-da-da. The ask needs to describe how much money we're raising, at what valuation, so that us investors that are professional investors can price the deal. Is this an expensive deal, whether I like the founder or not? And then what's the vehicle? Legally, what am I committing to? Which shows me that and if you don't explain this stuff, guys, you're either scared to ask for money or you don't know how to structure this properly, and it shows that you may not be fundraising fluent. Like if you don't explain the vehicle, it shows me you may not have one. You have not intentionally chosen one. Now, a great investor probably will not, kick you out of the clubhouse for not having this. But at the end of the day, it doesn't help you, right? Think of it like you're constantly being disqualified by capital. In the same way that a really attractive woman at an event is getting hit up constantly all the time, and she's having to disqualify. This is the world we live in. It's the same concept. All right. Distill everything into these core drivers, these emotions. These are the emotions you guys are looking to get people to feel. On the positive side, you want people to feel greed. That they feel, green light, hey, I'm going to make money if I invest in this. And I'm not saying they do it for that reason, but somewhere inside of their psyche, very deep, emotionally, subconsciously, it's being driven by greed. By increase, right? No, nothing wrong with that. Let's be honest, investors are here to make money. Second is you want them to fear missing out. I better invest. I better get involved. And if you look at what great founders do, guys, they instill this as well. It's like this push-pull thing where it's like, I know I can make money with this person and I really don't want to miss out. It's like this double emotion that they feel, right? And this is imbued in the homework the founder does to be market ready and to be prepared, in the leadership, in building a team, in going out and getting client and sales capital, which is your early revenue and traction, right? And also in being able to recruit great partners. Many funders say, your first test is, can you get a co-founder into the business that's really all in, that's burned the ships at the shore, that's excellent human capital and excellent addition to the team, right? Okay, remember. First and foremost, the problem must be clear for a very specific niche. In your pitch, in your deck, it must be very clear what the problem is. Don't wait till the end of the pitch. Don't wait till the end of the deck. It needs to be explained in the first 30 seconds of your pitch. Because funders will get lost as you're talking to them if you're not crystal clear. Now, the niche, because guys, you're not John Mayer. He can release whatever he wants. Dave Matthews Band has such a large roots audience, they can release whatever the crap they want. It could be some crappy bootleg, and they're still going to sell it. You got to write a hit song before you can go create a greatest hits. So focus on a niche. An example would be, and it helps me to understand if you know your avatar or your ICP, your ideal customer profile, right? If you can describe them with this kind of clarity. When I was doing mostly startup loans for startups, I could say our core user's name's Tiffany. She's 35 to 42 years old. She has a 2-car garage. She enjoys triathlete activities. She has a disposable income of $75,000 to $85,000. She lives in these 5 key markets, right? And I could go on. You need to have a few of these, and you're serving a specific problem. If you serve everyone, you serve no one, and you will fail. You will run out of money. Broad means broke. Broad means broke. And any switched on investor that truly understands how hard market acquisition is going to think that you're kind of ponderously looking for a business model. Make sure it's painful. Sell the cure. Sell the cure for a deadly virus, not the vitamins. Most startups think that they can sell nice to haves. You can't. You got to sell must haves. It's got to be really immediate for buyers, right? You just don't have the time, not in the beginning, to be selling nice to haves. Do not skip problem fit. How did you validate it and inform? How did you validate it to inform which solution so that we all know in the room, or we all know from the deck, you aren't guessing? Does that make sense? Have a seat, guys. And then last but not least, GTM, your go-to market, comes from that. When you go out and you start verifying, validating, demoing, pre-selling, that's how you're getting the information to build an instinct. An instinct comes from practice. An instinct comes from experience. An instinct comes from, I've been here before, I know what they're going to say, I know what they're going to do. Instinct comes from, like, guys, can I tell you from a message how to go glass blow? No, you have to have the rod in your hands. You have to be turning the metal and seeing how it's shaping the glass that's at a molten level temperature in order to know how to glass blow. Can you learn breakdancing with actually not getting on the ground and actually practicing moves? No. My favorite example is, can you learn to mountain bike? Guys, in the same way that Eskimos have all these different ways to describe all these different types of snow, us mountain bikers, the brown pow, the dirt, we have all these different names for dirt because we know that there's one part of the bike that touches the ground, and it's the tires. That's where all the magic happens. I literally can tell when it's just rained, it's time for some hero dirt. When a little bit more traction that makes me feel like a hero when I'm out there on the trails, right? That comes from experience. That comes from me falling off the side of the mountain. You can't skip that. GTM comes from that. Describe it to instill confidence. How are you acquiring users and clients? Don't guess. Tell us how you're actually doing it. And when you describe your GTM, it can't just be, well, we're going to use social media and we're going to do influencer campaigns. Yeah, dude, influencer campaigns are expensive. So who have you already talked to? Who have you got locked in? Who's ready to rock and roll, right? You're not going to pull the wool over a marketing switched on investor's eyes very easily with that. The more nuance and very specific detail. It's kind of like when I ask a founder, how much did you invest? And they say it was about $300,000. Great. It was $362,085. Which one's more believable? The more specific, because people don't tend to lie about stuff like that. Okay, a couple of reminders. Sell the problem and investment opportunity, not the product. Founders do this constantly, which shows how bad of marketers they are. They basically say, well, wait a minute, the product's so amazing, and da-da-da-da-da. They sell the solution that they built. They don't describe the problem and the benefits. And they do the same thing when they're trying to get somebody to invest. They're trying to sell the product that they built and the whiz bangs and the dealio boppers instead of selling the opportunity to invest. Do you see the difference? By the way, it's a snapshot. It's a little brochure to make them want to say, let's do a meeting. Let's talk further. Less is more. This is the reason why Mr. Twain's words, I think, ring out very nicely. I could have written you a short letter. I didn't have the time, so I wrote you a long one. And this is what founders do. They throw up all over people instead of actually taking the time to be extremely concise and clear when they communicate. This is what the best in the world do. Steve Jobs, when he would do his Apple product rollouts, he would copyright his speech. And copywriting is one of the most valuable marketing skills on earth, if not the most valuable. It is, how do I take a sentence and tie it to the next sentence so it drives emotional decision making, where it helps to rationalize what somebody's already decided in their heart and deeply in their subconscious that they want to have, and now they're trying to justify the purpose of buying it, right? Guys, investments are most certainly sold, not bought. Nobody goes out and says, I'm going to make an investment today, right? They're usually looking to be enrolled into that investment as to why it makes sense, because they're going to give you a check and they're not going to see anything for a couple of years. I want that to set in. Especially when I've angel invested, I might be waiting 10 years. 10 years. Most people can't wait 30 seconds, much less a year. And now we want somebody to wait 10 years? Yeah, you've got some job to do enrolling. And then last but not least, tailor the pitch or the deck to the capital category and the capital type. Capital categories are public and gov funds, Second is debt options. Third is all the equity types. And fourth is your sponsored capital and raised revenue. We've talked about sponsored capital very extensively here. That's when someone writes you a check. That's an investment, but there's no debt. It's not a loan. There's no grant. Didn't come from the government. And it is not an equity investment. It's an investment, but they're not taking equity in your business. So they're writing you a big fat check. Think $300,000, think a couple $1 million, because they want the outcome or the impact that what you're going to use the money for is going to produce. This takes a heavily advanced founder with crazy good people skills to pull off. It's been done in this market based on us educating people on how it works. You don't have to have Ivy League relationships to pull it off. You literally have to know how to win friends and influence people. So go read the book again. Founders seem to forget basic human people skills when it comes to raising capital. These are human beings making human decisions about writing you a check, and you want to reduce them down to a bank account. It's not going to work, especially when you want to go after alternative capital like sponsored capital. Capital types under those 4 capital categories break into 60 different types of capital. Let me drive this home for you guys. This is just a partial list of all the capital. This is the reason why we do fundraising fluency sessions. This is the reason why you guys have to understand this. Many of you guys are hunting for capital looking in the wrong place. Looking for love in all the wrong places, right? You need to understand where the capital is to even attract it. And nobody teaches this stuff. We do, and honestly guys, I thought I really knew it as a VC until I actually had to build a funding platform around it, and I realized I had to go back to school. Except for there was no school to teach me, I had to turn to history. And I had to look at the pattern. I had to follow the money to really understand where all the capital is going. This is just a very, very, very small list of all the capital types that are out there and all the shades and color that capital comes in. But just understand, it's everywhere and it's unlimited. Many of the great companies of today were built in the recession in 2008. Airbnb, Uber. So don't tell yourself that just because things might be different or they might be challenging. I don't actually think capital is more scarce. I think it's more available than ever before. I think people don't know where to look, and I think it's starting to become a little bit more challenging from the traditional channels because those funds are not performing. Sooner or later, a limited partner starts to say, who invested in a general partner fund with a VC, hey, you're not doing a better job than I can do by myself. I think I'm going to go direct. And there's people in this room that I know think that when they exit and they become a founder funder, which by the way is our entire northstar focus at Fusion. Our goal is to build better founders that know how to become market and raise ready so that they can go on and become founder funders. Some of the founder funders in the room I know are thinking, I'll manage my own money. I'm good. I don't need to give it to a VC because I can do a better job. Okay, real quickly before we get into your questions, what can Fusion 42 do for you guys? We have a pretty badass community where you can get real-time feedback in Telegram 24/7. We're basically a super accelerator. What does that mean? We're way better than other accelerators, and we're not trying to take any of your equity from your company. We probably should. Maybe that'll change. I don't know. We basically charge almost nothing for all the stuff that we do. Don't take it for granted. Listen to what the other founders are saying. I'm being very confident now in what I'm saying because we also listen to our clients and customers and our founders. And we hear the same thing over and over and over. And then the capital matching engine, which is probably the sexy part of what we built deep inside of what we're building. But guess what? It doesn't matter if you're not market ready. We can't introduce you to capital to overcome your lack of readiness. Does that make sense? You're going to take those leads and you're going to dash them on the shore of a sinking startup if you're not market ready. Okay, this is a bunch of the channels you guys can see here that we have in Telegram, and we're making a Tech Alley channel available that will connect to all this. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. We've got channel champions that are experts in every single one of these topics. Some of them we funded and helped them get their company where it is, so they believe in our mission. This is some of the content that we have. Again, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we have an AI session for AI agents that's going to be pretty advanced. That's on Tuesday morning. On Wednesday, this particular week, we have a European founder that has a lot of experience explaining from her perspective how you should be thinking about fundraising. And the Europeans are more conservative, so I think it's a pretty interesting thing. And then we have 3 times a month, we have Pitch Kung Fu on Thursdays, and we choose the best of the founders from the Danger Room and Telegram, which is 24/7, to Pitch Kung Fu on Thursdays, to Fused and Funded, which is once a month. And that's how these all work. You guys can sign up for the calendar. This is something new. We're basically been running Accelerator for the whole time we've been around, but we haven't formalized it into a program. So instead, we've been telling you what to do. This is your opportunity to come get to do it with us. strongly recommend you sign up for this. If you don't have a link, ask me for it. We'll get you set up. This starts at the end of the month, and it goes all the way till June, and then we have our next Raise Fundraising Summit. These are some of the benefits. You've got the community, you've got the live sessions, and you've got the Capital Network. What does this mean, guys? It means fast. It means fast. You want to move fast? You want to train to a higher standard? Come hang out with Fusion. If you want to be handed things, we're not interested, and really neither are any of the other funders out there. So just know that. But if you're serious about learning and really leveling up, we're really the best place for that. And then there's a QR code that you can scan. And we really truly love startups. This is why we do what we do. This is a very big problem that we are taking on. We're essentially building an ecosystem where the majority of what you need is available, and we're going to tell it to you straight, right? Go look at our website. We're very, very clear on we're here for founders that want to get stuff done. If you want to be in the same place in 90 days as you are today, we're not the place for you. If you want to come and do work, you want to show some actual, initiative, we're the best place for you. All right, let's get into your questions on pitch decks. Who wants to go first, quickly?
Well, it's not about pitch decks, but I tried to join on Fusion 42 yesterday.
Okay, yeah.
And large language model AI agent, you guys have there, it gets stuck on finalizer. Tried 4 times.
You've tried to build
No, I just tried to register. And
okay, got it.
It goes to the LLM. There's an AI agent that's supposed to look in finalizing whatever.
Okay, so you're having problems with registration. That's usually a Telegram auto thing, so we'll have to see if we can help you with that. But that's exceptionally rare. We have people join every single day, so it could be something with your phone or your computer or whatever. But we'll definitely make sure we get you sorted because we want you in there. Anything else?
I'll ask later.
Okay, yeah, guys, one of the reasons we have a really sophisticated login is because we're going to track everything you do. We're going to vectorize it into the database so that we have the data so we know how to make more intelligent matching decisions with you. It's created some challenges sometimes with some friction on the front end. We're okay with that because we want a very specific founder that actually wants to have a data-driven experience. Right now, VC is all emotional. People make decisions without any data. By the way, we don't just do this with the founders. We started this with the funders, right? We track what everything that comes out the VCs say versus what they do, we're tracking all of it. That's where we get our data to say this is the new funds that are coming out every single week, right? We want to start making this fundraising experience faster and more streamlined for you. It's going to take some time, but right now, that's not the way the world works. It's very like, I know a guy, let me introduce you. And I think that's great. That's wonderful. But we can't have startups moving at the speed of snails. Fundraising can't be taking a year. It needs to be taking 3-4 months. And we're pretty far away from that as far as the way the world works today, right? Okay, who else? Go ahead.
My name is Nick, everybody.
Hi, Nick.
So I feel like I have a list of questions.
Great. Bring them over to Telegram for what we can't answer today. Go ahead.
So I'm a co-founder with a startup myself.
Okay.
And, a lot of what you said resonates with me. So one thing that I'm really curious about is this idea of problem fit versus product market fit.
Yeah.
Could you break that down a little?
Sure. We have a diagram inside of Telegram. So let me do my best to describe it since I don't have the slide. On this side where your startup is beginning, right, and it's ramping up, you've got, think of it as 30, 60, 90-day windows of time that you have to practice and to test, verify, and validate the problem that you want to build the entire company around. So this is the reason I tell founders, find a problem in the world that you're obsessed with solving. You can't stop thinking about it because the problem is really the key. And then you need to go talk to clients and customers to see if they believe it's a painful problem and that your potential proposed solution, or as you do the interviews, start to come up with a solution if it's the right solution for the pain that they feel that they have that they're willing to exchange money for, right? And with problem fit, it's the kind of thing where most founders, almost no founders get it right the first time. I already told you, 7-time exited founder doesn't get it right. So just automatically assume that the problem you choose plus the solution is probably not going to be quite correct. And there's great examples of this with companies that aren't even in the same business as what they started. I don't want to say pivot, but I want to say micro adjustments, right? Where you're constantly making micro adjustments. It's cheaper, easier, and faster to make adjustments at the beginning. We've got a human capital expert in here. It's better to train your staff in the beginning to certain things than to be dealing with difficulties when they start to divide far away from what the company is meant to do. When you see this thing ramp up, you'll start to see that product market fit The difference is you've got a business model that's actually ready to scale. That's product market fit. That's when the company becomes a total rocket ship and you can't even hold on. It's literally running away from you. It's moving so fast. That is not what most companies are in. So when founders say, I'm ready to scale, I'm like, no, you're not. Because scaling doesn't really happen outside of product market fit. It usually starts happening after product market fit. We do have some examples where on the venture studio side, we help, some groups get to, we did one company, they did 60 million in sales their first year. But that was because they got lucky, where they chose the market at the right time and the market was completely behind them and it was a total tsunami. There was nothing they could have done to get to 60 million, right? Like, I think with the right problem fit and the right team and the right marketing, I think it could have been 15 million, which is an incredible amount of money for the first year, right? But 60 million, that's heavy market conditions. One other thing I'll say on this, we talk about bet on the jockey, not the horse, right? I think you should bet on the race as well. Is it the right jockey for the right vehicle, problem fit, in the right market, which is the race? A great market can help a good founder become exceptional and be successful. A great market can help a not so great founder actually make it. There's great examples. WeWork. There's also great examples of a great founder in a bad market, and that's very difficult to overcome. In fact, most founders can't do it, no matter how good they are. They usually get intelligent enough to realize, oh, this isn't working. I'm going to pivot it to something else. I'm going to sunset this product. I'm going to launch something else. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a graphic I can send you in probably the GTM channel that really displays this really well. But essentially, it's just you've got a couple of shots. Think of it like a cannonball. And the reason I use a cannonball is those suckers are heavy and they're hard to load in, and you don't have a million shots. It takes a minute to get it set up, right? So you have to be kind of careful because, again, I think most founders have about 4 or 5 tries in a year. And after that, they're probably not going to make it if they don't do it, right? Okay, next. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, if the first 3 slides are your title,
Yeah.
problem, and solution slides, what are the next, like immediate slides do the investors want to see right after the solutions?
Yeah, and again, I just want to remind you guys, like, your pitch needs to come first, right? Your deck essentially describes, there's also a conversation around, should you be sending decks if you're not presenting in front of it? I think that there's different decks for different capital types. I personally, but I also have been doing startups for 20 plus years, I don't send decks unless I'm presenting in front of it. But I'm not recommending that to everyone. Some people don't have a capital network. And as much as we believe decks are going to go away, they are the current currency of the capital world to sometimes get doors to be open and stuff like that. But I will just also say this, I've never seen a deck ever get somebody funded. A deck confirms or denies what somebody emotionally has already decided about you if they know, like, and trust you, right? So back to your comments, I think that your decks need to be between 10 and 12 slides. If you go follow the format that we have for Pitch Kung Fu, of how you come out of the gate with the story, you come out of the gate with the problem, you come out of the gate with the pain, you come out of the gate with the connection emotionally to that, right? That's probably the most important part of the pitch, is that beginning hook, right? And then if you're smart, and founders forget this, I think because we're so used to getting beaten down, like the fact that we've had an exit, the fact that we produced revenue in other companies, the fact that we've, put up $2 million to get it to where it is, that's kind of a big number. The bigger the number, if you haven't verified and validated, the more I think you don't know what you're doing. So a couple $100,000, totally fine. But if you come and you tell me you put 10 million in, 6 million in, 5 million in, I'm like, you like to spend a lot of money. You didn't bother to test and verify. So that actually scares me that you don't know what it takes, that you're burning money to get there, right? As far as the decks go, I don't know that there's a perfect order. I don't focus so much on that, but I do think that there's a story arc. Think of it like a great song where it's got the crescendo leading into the bridge and everything, and then it comes to an end, right? And by the end, everyone's still captivated and very interested. Come check out the Pitch Kung Fu's, and I think you'll get a better understanding of that. But again, out of the gate, you're explaining the problem, you're explaining how you're going to solve it, but the problem is more important. It needs to be super compelling. And then also, you're going to be kind of breaking down your GTM, and that needs to be in the middle of the pitch, the GTM. This is how we're going to market. This is how we verified, validated the go-to market. And this is how we're acquiring users, and you're specific about it. You could even say something kind of smart like, we have 20 options that we've outlined of how we're going to go to market for acquisition, and these are the first 3 that we're trying based on validation, based on the wait list, based on whatever, right? so that I know that you're ready to load in the next. Think of it like a big cannon on a battleship, right? You've got the big shell that goes into the gun, right? I know that if one doesn't work, you miss, you're ready to load up the next one. Because most of us, we don't get the marketing right on the first try. It's something like an airplane doesn't take off and take no course corrections. You're taking these little minute corrections as you go on. So your pitch, your GTM, your decks, they all need to evolve. They cannot be the same from month to month to month. Even as you start pitching for capital, you start hearing certain things over from the first 10 investors. Oh, okay, we need to, okay, let's actually solve this problem before we get derailed with this. Oh, okay, we heard this. This isn't landing quite right. It's not making sense to people. We keep getting questions about it, right? This is the iterative process. This is why feedback is the currency of a great founder. They're not afraid to receive it. They know when to take it in. They know when to say, well, that person's life experience or that person's position in the market may not be the best place for me to be taking this portion of the feedback that they're giving me, right? There is an element of a founder needs to be the visionary in the company. I don't ever want a founder to hear anything otherwise than that, because you're going to get feedback from all directions. But are you intelligent about taking that feedback in and understanding your job is to take feedback, iterate, execute. Feedback, iterate, execute. Feedback, iterate, execute. The faster you can do that, you're going to be successful, right? I talk about this like superpowers that we talk about from Avengers, right? The real superpower to have is adaptability. That's how companies make it, when they're highly adaptable and they're not emotional. Something I've gotten feedback from a lot of the investors that come to the sessions is, Kurt, why are your founders always taking notes? Like you're here giving them a barrage of feedback and they're not taking it personal, because it's not personal. We do this for the love of startups. We do this because we want people to make it. And there's a little piece of feedback that we'll end on that I kind of warmed my heart a little bit to hear, that somebody recognizes what our long-term game is. Next question. Go ahead. Yeah.
So this goes back to what you said, the problem solution. So the particular type of problem that we have, the problem solution that we have is highly technical.
Yeah.
Probably 5% of engineers will understand, and almost 0% of the potential investor market will understand. However, if we put the prompt next to it and explain the solution in terms of practical use, that clicks immediately.
Yeah.
So how do you incorporate that? Obviously, you can use the prompt.
Yeah, you've got to, I hope I'm answering your question correctly. You've got to find a way to make it fourth grader level. You have to. And let me explain this. So one of the clients that we worked with, we took them from, they raised 10 million and then we helped them raise 100. This is a different echelon. This is not a startup. This is somebody that already had ramped up, right? This is institutional raising, different capital types, right? But they went from 10 million to 130 million to raising 50 million a month, 30 million a month, 50 million a month, and then on from there. 100 million a month, right? The only way that works is in a story that's easily duplicatable, that works, that emotionally drives, that can be spread through organizations. So it's a good exercise to have of if 5% of the population understands it, it's way too complicated in the way you're explaining it. Because it just needs to be common sense to investors.
From technical perspective.
Yeah.
But if you explain it with a prompt, like for example with a blood pressure machine or with the GPS card or whatever.
Yeah.
People understand the prompt.
Yeah, if
you can't bring that into the...
Yeah, well, find a way to storytell around it is the one thing I would say. And then the second part of it is, if you're going to use another company or another example as a simile for people to understand, make sure that you've researched what that is. If you say, hey, we're like this founder, or hey, we're like this company, this is what we do, be very careful, because you better know the business model, you better know how they raise money, and you better know a lot about the founder, because there are investors like myself where we know the stories. Like this is what we do. We go and we research, how did the founder in this vertical do that? So that we start to see the patterns. And so when somebody says, I'm the Uber of this, or I'm like, ooh, I'm going to tear you apart, because you probably didn't go and study how Uber got to where they did, what they had to go through. And I don't think most founders are willing to do what Travis did. And I don't agree with everything he did, but I will say he executed like a mother effer, right? Like he's probably one of the best startup founders we've seen in 20 years plus, easy. Just the difficulty that he went through. Now again, he made decisions I morally probably would not have made, but it's pretty incredible what Uber did. Different time though, also different time, where people are willing to burn lots of cash to get into market dominance. That's not where we're at today. We could definitely sound off more on this inside Telegram. Okay, who else? Go ahead.
Kind of related to finding the problem. So it seemed like a lot of the unicorn guys kind of fell into it, like Uber, hey, I need to find a taxi. Airbnb, I need to
But they didn't. But they never found the problem the first time perfectly, ever.
So they kind of see these problems. They just have a knack, or you teach a discipline or a process for identifying problems and converting.
Yes.
them.
Yeah. We're getting better and better at detailing that as more and more founders start to have that light bulb moment. It is a tough thing to tell a founder their baby's ugly. It's a tough thing to tell a founder that's sunk a ton of money into something that they might have to start over. But yes, I agree. Frameworks that help them to understand how they can be looking at validating and verifying. We are in the process of doing that, and that's part of what Global Super Accelerator is designed to do.
What do you call it? Serial entrepreneurs, they get one and they're like, let me go find another problem and then scale it.
Right. But they follow the same methodology. So somebody said this really well. There's a medical person. I said, how did you learn this? Because they're not startup educated. She said, I think about it like a scientist. I'm unemotional. I create a test, and I create a control group, and I test, I verify, I test, I verify, and I do that rapidly until I find something that I know makes a lot of sense. And so this is just a process that, unfortunately, we as founders, we're way too attached to our product. Again, we have a product looking for a market. We need to find the market, detail the problem to that market, and then build the actual product, reflect reactively to what the market's telling us. You can do this with your GTF, your go-to fundraise. So we had a founder in the room, this was probably about a year ago, where he's had 3 exits. His last exit was $300 million. I said, how'd you go about your GTF? He said, I went to the investors, I asked them how they would like to fund, and I gave it to them. Rocket science. He knew, based on past experience, what kind of structure they would like that would make it easy for them to put their capital into, and obviously he had a track record. But I thought it was interesting that it's these really experienced founders that are still showing up to learn. Like, he still comes to the sessions and stuff. It's interesting that founders that don't know anything are the ones that are hard to convince that this is the way things work, whereas you got founders that just know that, hey, I raised, but man, it was harder than it probably need to be. Maybe I can learn some tips that will make all the difference in the future for me. Go ahead.
Okay, so
Then you, Mark.
the story you get towards a why invest now, but how do you get to the financial part, like the investment breakdown, the use of funds?
Yeah, that's a question that probably should go into the Financial Mastery channel in Telegram. We have a whole channel champion that's devoted to cap table management, all that, where you break down how you do that. But at the end of the day, you need to figure out what the valuation of the company is, what the vehicle is, and then you'll understand, like, hey, we're asking for 1.5 million. This is the vehicle we're raising. It's in a safe, it's in a convertible note, it's in a whatever structure. And this is the valuation of the company. Now, if it's a safe, you don't need to explain what the valuation is, because an investor is going to know that you're delaying what the valuation is. They don't love that so much, but safes are pretty well accepted these days in some circles. Go ahead, Mark.
My question is a button to that.
Yeah.
You seem to recommend that all pitch decks should include the ask, right? Like at the end.
It depends, but yeah, most of the time.
Do you think investors then have an expectation that there's behind that additional details regarding the market and the ROI?
Sure. I mean, look, your data room, which again, I've never seen anybody get funded because of a data room, but it's going to confirm or deny. Look, guys, everything in startups is a test. You're testing, but you're being tested, and you're being watched, right? And we watch you more than you think. A lot of the investors that come to all the sessions, they're quiet. Hey, what do you think about such and such a founder? And I get to say things like, well, they're never on time. They don't show up for other founders. They seem to be kind of all about themselves. Actually, these are not things I can say about many of the Fusion 42 founders, because we don't attract this nonsense, right? But it's interesting. I believe we'll be able to build a new heuristic way to underwrite founders based on the way we observe them showing up in community as time goes on. But absolutely, 100% of the time almost, the funders will reach out to us and say, we're interested in making an investment. What do you think? And I'll have to say the founder's not coachable. I can't put my stamp of approval. But more often than not, I get to say I've got to interact with them. I think they're going to make it. They're open, they're coachable, and I think they could be a good partner, right? Make sense?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
And see, this is the easy one. The entity type matter when you're actually kind of going through.
Does hype matter?
No, type. Entity type. Is it LLC?
100%. You're not raising startup venture capital money into an LLC. You pretty much, for the most part, there are some exemptions if you're crypto or whatever, Wyoming, but in general, Most groups are going to want to see a Delaware C Corp. Now,
Nevada C Corp, which is-
not typically, but I would also say that a Nevada can sometimes be acceptable, and sometimes Wyoming. But in general, Delaware has the most sophisticated structure that's most understood by most investors. Now again, these are financial fundraising decisions you make when you choose which entities and stuff, and you may be increasing and introducing friction into the process. But if you're a great founder with a great company, sometimes you can overcome that. I'm just speaking to the mean, the average. Delaware C Corp. Yep. Go ahead, Martin. Any of you guys? You next after that, and you after that. Go ahead.
Is there a equation to figure out valuation for a pre-revenue product?
Yes, that's in the financial mastery room in the Telegram. Rather than me give you something rough, I would rather you give variables to someone like Antoine, and he'll help you figure it out. We're doing a whole session during the Global Super Accelerator where he's going to break it all down, and he's going to do a live. He's going to build your model live. So again, it's really important to be at the sessions. And if you guys can't, we have a 42 Plus membership where you can come see the sessions after the fact. We don't have a lot to sell over at Fusion. It's $42 a month. It's criminally underpriced, but hey, take advantage of it. Go ahead.
Okay, so with this, recession, uncertainty in global scenario that we are facing now, what are, in your opinion, the key factors, you have to put on the deck, to get attention on your product?
I think that the deck is a tool.
I know, it's one part of it.
So I would say just being an exceptional founder is what's going to get you funded, no matter what the market conditions are. And in the deck, again, I don't lean on decks to get me funded ever. I lean on the relationship. I lean on the preparedness. I lean on any opportunity for them to hear me speak versus a deck, right? So that's just first and foremost, right? But I also think that practicing the feedback, then practicing the pitch, and then making sure that the deck is reflective of that practice, of that homework, is the thing that'll get the job done. If you have lots of data that's going into this, and I don't mean data you pulled off the internet, I mean experience and practice and pre-selling that goes into this, you're going to be more successful that way. There's a reason why Utah founders are so good, guys, is because they know how to sell. And they don't raise capital. They bootstrap their companies. Because they're not afraid to sell. Founders are scared to go out and get feedback because they don't want to be told their baby's ugly. But everybody's baby's ugly. Everybody's baby's ugly. If you're not moving so fast that the early version of your product that you shipped kind of embarrasses you a little bit, you're not moving fast enough. You're probably not going to make it. Happy to answer this question with more depth and detail in Telegram, and turn it into a conversation. You guys go ahead.
I think probably your answer is going to be go into the Telegram.
Sure.
But I'm going to start the first time raising using a safe.
First time raising using a safe, okay.
So I guess we have a number of projected monthly recurring revenue at X dates.
Sure.
So I guess if a investor says what kind of, I know you're investing with a safe, but what's your valuation, what's your estimates?
Yeah.
What's the best data to give them?
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to ask you that most of the time if you have a safe, because they know that they may not like that you're using a safe, but you're basic, guys, part of the reason why a safe is, and every agreement is pro-founder or pro-funder. A safe is a pro-founder agreement. It puts more protection, more control, more delay on things for the founder. So it's one of the functions a safe has is it's delaying the valuation. It's saying we don't want to decide what the valuation is today. We're going to put it down the road. That's risky for a funder because they want to. You've got these two things at war with each other. Every founder wants to sell as little of their company for maximum amount of cash. Every funder wants to get a deal it's great founder, great startup, but it's cheap. It's inexpensive. Can't believe I'm getting a deal that's worth $10 million for $5 million, which means I have dramatically increased my rate of return, right? So you've got these juxtapositions that are at odds with each other a little bit, where the funders want a cheaper deal. So not knowing the valuation is not helpful for them. They can't price the deal, right? They're accepted in some circles, but it depends. If you go through advisors, like people that professionally help people raise, they usually don't like safes because it's not good for them as an advisor and it's not good for their client from a risk perspective, right? As far as, I would probably go and ask Antoine that as well. See what his response is because he's European and he studies this stuff all day long. Okay, we only have time for a few more questions and we'll do a group picture. Go ahead.
So I just have two questions and hopefully we have time. But so one, So you mentioned the whole concept of building an MVP. And,
MVE, minimum viable experiment.
Oh, right, and
Yeah.
like not to build an
Minimum viable experiments here at Problem Fit, and then as you've had a few iterations, you might be able to get to an MVP. You're raising money for the MVP. You're not building a bunch of software until the market has told you 100%, 1000%, we want what you're buying. We want what you're building. Founders do this all the time where they build something and then they die. And guys, just because you got funded doesn't mean anything. I know a founder raised a couple $1 million, and it's only because he's been able to attract more capital. And I don't know, like, capital doesn't fix all problems. Want to know what does? Revenue. But investment capital doesn't. Continue.
This is kind of a loaded question, I guess,
Sure.
but basically what I'm asking is, so my team right now, we are in a very new, innovative space. As you can imagine, we are building an AI product, and it's extremely fast-moving, and there are
Shocker.
new things occurring
Yep.
every day.
Yep.
So what we're trying to figure out right now is operating costs. Like, we need to know exactly what it's going to cost to maintain the product, essentially.
Yeah.
So we are under the impression that we need to build an initial product to start testing and learn what are these operating costs going to be.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
So
I go to experts that know what stuff costs and get there as a first pass. Again, you're always taking in data, but the longer you can delay putting out capital for something that the market hasn't shown that it demands and wants, the better. Now, you don't want to delay anything. You want to be as quick as you can. So what I would do is I would come to the AI channel and I'd start asking all the questions with the nerds that are literally living, sleeping, breathing with AI and their thoughts, visions of sugar plums and AI in their thoughts at night, right? That's what I do. We also have some options that we're looking into to help you pay for your server costs that are on the blockchain side of things. And then when it comes to the modeling part, again, that's a modeling question and it's a guesstimate. You don't have the data, right? And this is the reason why, guys, when you go do your feedback interviews, this is the reason why the data is critical, because you're making decisions based on, like, for example, I'm out mountain biking and I don't have my fancy app. Okay, great. Where are the mountains relative to which direction? Can I guess based on that data, based on where the sun's at, right? These are rudimentary options. I could still get lost, and sometimes I do, right? But at least I'm leveraging these things to kind of understand what decision should I make as to where to go, right? So I would use some of those like northstar guides, people that have been there and done it. I would talk to them first before I go build stuff. It's really dangerous to build stuff today, guys, because the cost of technology is lessening so fast. The expectations of what you do with little is also increasing. So that's the beauty. I've said this a bunch of times before. I'll say it again. Good news. What used to cost $5 million costs $50,000 today, 15 years ago. What cost $50,000 is now zero, ostensibly, in the short term for a startup. Which means that some Indian in some basement is going to kick your ass because he's outworking you and he wants it more than you do. And you're competing with them on a global stage for capital. There's more access to capital than ever before, though, to counteract that. But are you going to be a better storyteller? Are you going to be a better leader to attract those resources and relationships is the question, right? Does that answer your question?
yeah, I think so. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. One more question, then we got to get the group picture. Anybody else?
I had one more.
Oh, of course.
But if anybody else has one. So this is kind of a simple question, but I'm just kind of curious. Does number of founders make a difference
Yes.
for an investor? Like
Yes.
one founder versus three founders,
Yes.
for example?
Every funder wants to know that you got your first enrollment by selling another person to basically get in the freaking rowboat with you to go to sea with no certainty of success, and that they're willing to be full-time and to be deeply committed. Yes, 100%. And the stats show pretty aggressively that 2 co-founders is typically better than 1 co-founder, and that in some cases 3 and 4, up to about 4, can be. Now, you don't just add people to add people, right? Like, think of it like you're a Navy SEAL team. That means all of you must go home. That means you don't leave a man or a woman behind, right? So they have to be able to pull their own weight. You got to be able to say, man, I'm so glad that I chose this co-founder. I'm so glad that we're in this battle and in this war together, and that we're shoulder to shoulder versus I got to drag your ass along. You're dead weight. So again, it's a marriage. So be very, very careful about who you get wed to and your co-founder. Co-founder divorces are one of the largest reasons why startups fail outside of like them not nailing the problem fit and figuring out market readiness and all that kind of stuff. It's a huge issue, like seriously. Like I worry about it a lot, is founders not getting along. It's like all the greatest rock bands. How many lead singers has Van Halen had, like for crying out loud? Were you going to say something?
Oh, it was just another question.
Oh, okay, really quick.
Yeah, how, does it matter how long the co-founders know each other? Or it's only
I don't have the data on that one. I think it's better if they've known each other a long time. I do think that, because the more data you have, the better decisions you make, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, we got to jump into lunch. Come down and get a group picture real quick, guys. And if you enjoyed this, we have sessions on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. Go to fusion-42.com to see all that. Come, jump in. Even though we've got a small crew today, come get up front, buddy. John's one of our partners, by the way, guys. If you guys want to learn about human capital and how you should be building your teams, come hop in real quick. We're small but mighty. If you can group in. Here, we'll push this back. All right. Hey, it's cool. We didn't like that chair anyway. He's taking out his startup aggressions. He's like, screw this chair. On 3, you ready? On 3, we're going to say, who's got my money? 1, 2, 3. Who's got my money? One more. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Who's got my money? All right, guys. See you next month. We'll see you in the sessions. You got it.